All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good buddy Kevin Gosztola. Kevin is a journalist who writes the Dissenter blog at Fire Dog Lake, which you can find at dissenter.firedoglake.com. He is the co-author of the book Truth and Consequences, The United States versus Bradley Manning. You can find him on Twitter at kgosztola. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Kevin, right now you are currently sitting in your car outside of the Bradley Manning trial. I actually got your voicemail a second ago, which apparently they're not allowing you to use phones from inside from the press room, even in the trial. So tell us a little bit about the latest in the Bradley Manning trial. It's getting pretty close to the end here. So tell us what's the latest developments.
We're all awaiting the verdict, and by all, I mean the 3 or 4 members of the press who are committed to actually covering this and are willing to just sit in the media center and actually wait so that other press in the world will know that a verdict is actually coming. And this is important because the Public Affairs Office, their email isn't working, so they can't send out notices to the press and let people know that a verdict is coming. So the only way you can find out right now is from the 4 people in the press who are sitting in there and will tweet that a verdict is coming. Or supporters. There are some supporters that will tweet a verdict is coming. But we're all waiting, and David Coombs, Manning's defense attorney, has speculated that the verdict will be tomorrow. We'll hear that officially today. The process that has been happening is she's in deliberation. They wrapped up closing arguments last week. And she is now deliberating, so she's reviewing all the evidence, and she opens the court in the morning for 5 minutes, and she says something official and just brings the court to order. If she has any questions or anything she needs to say, that's the opportunity, and then she closes the courtroom, and she goes back to her chamber and continues to review everything, and then she is opening it at lunchtime, and she's also going to go on the record again in the middle of the afternoon, and this process will continue until she has a verdict. And so finally she'll come forward and she'll say, I have a verdict, I'll be reading it tomorrow, or I'll be ruling tomorrow, something to that effect, and then people will know to be here. We've been told we're going to get a day's notice, or somewhere around 24 hours notice, so that we can be here.
So there's going to be one later on this afternoon. I'm talking to you on Monday. So later on this afternoon, she'll come out again and say nothing, or this is happening tomorrow, theoretically. And then it might happen. It might happen on Tuesday. It might happen on Wednesday. It could go even longer. We're not really sure still what's going on.
So I can tell you that she's probably going to rule this week. Now, as we're talking, by the time it's the weekend, people will be discussing talking about the conviction of Bradley Manning, sort of, maybe.
Yeah, right.
The press doesn't actually cover this trial, so on the weekend news programs, I don't really expect it to get much coverage, except maybe on an MSNBC show, or not, or maybe a CNN program. But it will be something that we will at least be discussing, is the conviction of Bradley Manning on what charges we don't know yet. And then sentencing will begin, and I've been told that the government has 21 witnesses it will be calling, and the defense has 24 witnesses. So all of us in the press are recommitting ourselves to being here through August. I mean, it's quite a commitment. A lot of us, we've been doing this since June, the first week of June, and giving up our entire summer to cover the case, and in the meantime coming here to the media center where there's conditions that are just sometimes completely nerve-wracking for you as a journalist because, one, we don't have internet when court is in session, so we're not allowed to be surfing on our computers anymore, and I don't really know what that has to do with anything, like why that's legitimate. And then, of course, there were a lot of attention on Thursday of last week because they had armed guards walking up and down the aisles, peering over her shoulder. I creepily had a armed military police officer look over my shoulder and tell me, do not have Twitter open at all. I need you to not have Twitter open at all.
Wow.
And I was just like, what? I'm not sending messages. No, don't have the window open at all. Don't make it look like you might be using Twitter.
Unbelievable,
I was like,
man.
okay.
Yeah, it's just but we live in a free society, right? So this is a free country, supposedly. Man, that's ridiculous. So let's get to some of the closing arguments and talk a little bit about what happened, because that's happened since the last time you've been on. What is your take on the what's happening with both the prosecution and the defense's closings?
The main thing with the prosecution's closing argument is that even though they did a good closing argument by a prosecutor's standard and went through all the pieces of evidence and gave their theory for how Manning committed offenses. But what really stuck out about their argument was just how they took it to the level of calling him an anarchist, calling him a hacker, for the first time using the word traitor to describe Bradley Manning. And they really went over the top and decided that they were going to go out and out assassinate his character. And for whatever reason, the prosecutors decided that this was something they needed to do, either because privately this had been within them throughout the whole proceedings, and they were finally given an opportunity to unleash it all, just start being really viciously aggressive towards Bradley Manning in the courtroom. But of course, that set up a scenario where the defense came back the next day with a closing argument and tried to rehumanize Bradley Manning, remind people of what they want everyone to think of him as this whistleblower, a person with good intentions who thought he could change the world, maybe naively, but also saying that Bradley Manning was smart enough. He knew this information that he was releasing wasn't going to do damage to the United States. Actually, that was interesting for me, is that Coombs actually made that point. He says, we actually dispute this idea that any of this information has done any damage, or even that it could have done damage. And I think that Bradley Manning was able to look at the information and, from his experience in the military, say, this is an information that would do damage to the United States, which it's a very controversial argument to put on the record, because people have reviewed the information who are what you call original classification authorities, and they say there's all this stuff in there, including like the more popular of his releases, the collateral murder video. Like the prosecutors say, there are heads-up displays, and you can see different things in there, and you can see the weapons, and you can see how all of this works, and our enemies can watch the video and get information and intelligence that they wouldn't have normally been able to get. And, Coombs is just saying, well, no, I completely disagree with this official person who reviews the classified information and made that determination. I think that there is no damage that could have been caused by all of this.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is, looking at the stuff, there's stuff that's embarrassing, there's stuff that's morally outrageous, but as far as actual damage to actual safety of troops or anything like that, that's a pretty ridiculous argument.
But the more powerful thing, just to bring it back quickly to this whole thing of Manning releasing information that he believed needed to be out to the public, of seeing a war crime in the collateral murder video. There's a very powerful moment in the closing argument of David Coombs' closing argument where he played 3 clips from collateral murder, and on firedoglake.com I queued up each of these clips so people could see, and then I included Coombs' narration, and it was, amazing. He's giving commentary on the collateral murder video that Bradley released, trying to get the judge to be in Manning's shoes. Imagine you're a soldier. This is your first deployment. You're seeing people killed. You're seeing soldiers beg for a wounded person to pick up anything that resembles a weapon so they can gun him down with an Apache gunship. Just how, sadistic does that seem? That, you're just sitting there and you're begging for an order to fire on a van that's rescuing wounded people, and you're saying to your superior officer, let me fire. I want to fire my weapon, and I want to blow this thing to pieces. Give me the order. And so Coombs was recounting that, and it was pretty amazing.